Sicce is an Italian manufacturer of premium aquarium equipment. They've been making pumps, motors, and filters for literally decades, and I remember using some of their smaller power heads and internal filters when I was starting out in the hobby. Now, over the last couple decades, Sicce has really raised their reputation for having some very high quality products that are very efficient, very quiet, and last a long time. So most notably of these is going to be the Sicce Synchra return pumps and the Sicce PSK line of needle wheel pumps for protein skimmers. So it was about 10 years ago that we started seeing a new breed of water pumps in the aquarium hobby that used a new type of technology that was a DC driven motor. And what these enabled was controllable pumps, and because they had a controller, it was much more straightforward to bake in some new features with those water pumps. So about 5 years ago, Sicce introduced the SDC, or the Smart DC line of water pumps to complement their Synchra and PSK series pumps. But today we finally get to take a look at the all-new Sicce PSK 1200 SDC water pump that's going to be suitable for a much larger range of protein skimmers. What's going on, Reef Builders? I'm Jake. We're back in the Reef Builder studio. Today we're taking a look at the Sicce controllable PSK pumps. Just going to get this out of the way. It is a mouthful to say Sicce PSK, then the model number, then SDC. I wish you could figure out a shortened name for it, but that's what we got right now. So it was about 5 years ago that Sicce revealed two brand new PSK needle wheel pumps in sizes we hadn't seen before. So if you're familiar with the AC PSK series, they max out at 1200, and so for larger protein skimmers, manufacturers that generally have just used multiples of 1200s to get more foam. So it was actually quite surprising and a little bit exciting when Sicce announced the PSK 2600 SDC and the PSK 4000 SDC. This is the 4000 here that goes with my Ultra Reef protein skimmer. This is actually the base that comes with the protein skimmer itself. But overall, the look is pretty much the same. One big difference is going to be that clear volute, so you can really eyeball how much foam it's producing, and this really awesome snap clamps mechanism that allows you to very easily pull off the volute for maintenance and operation. So when I finally got my hands on the 1200 version, you'll see it looks exactly the same as the PSK 1200 that we're used to. So I was a little bit disappointed not to see that clamp lock mechanism or the transparent volute, but the reason they did that is that this could be a one-to-one drop-in for existing protein skimmers, right? So imagine all the protein skimmers out there in the world that are using a PSK 1200. I think some notable examples are going to be some of the eShop skimmers, Braid Sea skimmers, Ultra Reef skimmers, and many, many more. So that's exactly what we're going to do today. I'm just going to take it apart just to show you a few things. It still has like the screw lock mechanism. Take that off. And then my sample actually came with just kind of a built-in standard Venturi. This one's very similar to the one that comes with the Seachem Division protein skimmers, but this also doubles up as a tool to help you get that volute faceplate out so we can take a look inside, and it looks basically the same as what we're used to. The biggest difference is going to be that this pump actually connects to a controller. So this is, you connect to this wirelessly. You have some manual buttons here for speed up, speed down. You have your speed indicator here, your Wi-Fi indicator here, and an on and off indicator here. I don't think that's a button, but this is going to be really cool because we're able to basically turn our regular protein skimmer into a smart protein skimmer. So let's go take a look at the device that we're going to be upgrading today and see how it works. So we're back onto the main floor of the Reef Builder Studio, and if you've been watching the channel for any length of time, you'll be familiar with the Red Sea Peninsula, which has become a very frequent test bed for new aquarium equipment that we test out here at the studio. So we've been using the Acro-Optic lights for over 2 years. We've tested the Reefer skimmer from Red Sea on this tank, the Seachem Division protein skimmer on this tank, and most recently would be the Red Sea Reef dosing system that we're using to supplement all the minerals and traces that this tank needs. But we've gone back to the Red Sea Reefer Skimmer 900 because this protein skimmer is a perfect example of a model that uses the classic PSK 1200 already, so it should make for a hot swap upgrade with the brand new controllable PSK 1200 SDC version. So by now, a lot of you might be wondering why a controllable pump if my protein skimmer is working really well already. And the short answer is if your protein skimmer is really rocking and you already have a PSK 1200, you know, you're not going to be missing out on much. However, the controllable DC version of this pump, the PSK 1200 SDC, is going to run a little quieter. It's going to give you a lot more programmability it's in terms of fine-tuning the pump with how much protein skimming you want for your aquarium. So one of the challenges we have on this tank is it always bottoms out of nutrients. We literally add a lot of food and liquid nitrate to the aquarium, and for that we would like to be able to dial down the skimmer certain parts of the day, certain days of the week, but most importantly have a programmable feed mode that is going to turn off the protein skimmer for 30 minutes to an hour when we're really blasting the tank with food. So we're going to take this protein skimmer off, swap it out for the PSK 1200 SDC, and see how they compare. Okay, so we've pulled out the Red Sea Reefer Skimmer 900, cleaned up all the parts that go on top of the protein skimmer, especially the body, so we can have a nice clear acrylic to see all the precious foam that the new pump is going to produce. And we've gotten to the nuts and bolts of this video. That is where the pump meets the base plate of the protein skimmer itself. Now different manufacturers are going to have different ways to mount the pump, but in this case the Red Sea has kind of a clamping mechanism where you can just simply pull the pump off to one side and it will easily dislodge. So this is the AC version. You can see it's a little bit dirtier. This is the DC version, but otherwise they're identical in size, identical in shape. Everything is the same about them, except this is an AC motor that just plugs in on and off. And this is the controllable DC motor. So I'm pretty sure we're just going to be able to just pop that right down, and the only concern I had was whether this cord was going to be able to go through this routed section. It does, so I believe now we could put some things back together. So we have the bubble diffuser chamber, we have the bubble diffuser plate, screws on just like that. Very nice, very easy. Then we put the gasket on the front of the faceplate of the pump itself so it can receive the venturi, and make sure to have this gasket pointed towards the inlet of the water pump, and if there's no obstruction this should just sit right down just like that. Boom. All right, and then the last thing is the protein skimmer nozzle right here, the protein skimmer valve that kind of just soft fits in there. All right, so we're gonna finish putting this protein skimmer together, put it back in the sump, get everything wired up, and we're gonna see what this baby can do. All right, so we have the Reefer Skimmer 900 back in the sump. We have the pump turned on to full power, and you can't really see it because it's hiding behind a giant cloud of very, very fine foam. So we noticed two things immediately different between the SDC version and the AC version is just as we suspected, this pump is definitely a lot quieter in this protein skimmer than the old PSK 1200 was. And the air seems to be really fine. I'm not super sure if that's because it's a brand new, very clean impeller, but we'll have to see as the protein skimmer starts to work. And I'm not sure how much the protein skimmer needs to break in because the protein skimmer is old. We've cleaned it a lot, but the pump is new. So we're gonna let this run for about a week, get everything connected to the control app, and we'll see how we can make it dance, you know, start accessing some of the programmability features, some of the feed modes, and so yeah, we're gonna circle back in a week and tell you all of our thoughts. so it's been about a week that we've been using the Sicce PSK 1200 SDC, the controllable version of their needle wheel pump on the Red Sea Reefer Skimmer 900, and it's performing just as well, if not a little bit better than the old version, probably because it's cleaner. Although it did take 3 days for it to break in, I really thought that the body would be most of what would prevent a protein skimmer from skimming right away, but we had to wait a good 3 days to see the same kind of foam that we experienced before, and definitely probably the biggest improvement is to the noise. The PSK 1200 AC version, it wasn't noisy, but it was audible. But now the SDC version definitely runs a lot quieter. So if silence is important to you, which it is to us, it's a very welcome addition to the equipment on this aquarium. So we've got it connected to the Control app. Unfortunately, at this time, there are no feed modes, either on the controller or in the app, and we don't have the same programmability functions for the needle wheel protein skimmer pump as we've enjoyed in the Syncra SDC pumps. So we've spoken to Sicce, and I know they're going to be working really hard to implement a feed mode and a programmability functions, because we want this protein skimmer to run, really strongly for like half a day, and the other half of the day just kind of run at a lower level, so we're not stripping this tank out because it's got a lot of corals. It really sucks it out, and that's not going to be the kind of functions that everyone else prioritizes. Definitely the quiet feature is the quieter operation is going to be the most important, the most celebrated feature of the DC version of the PSK 1200. But one feature that it does have, and so this is kind of an important one, is a soft start feature, right? So if you have an AC pump on your protein skimmer and your power is interrupted, when the power comes back on, that protein skimmer will turn on right away, and because the water level in your sump is higher, it's going to oftentimes overflow, and it's going to send skimmate all up into your tank, and it's going to fill up the cup, and you're going to have to empty it and just kind of reset the skimmer. So the soft start feature is already available. That's a really, really important one. And that's one thing that you can actually change and program yourself in the app, but natively it will run at 30% for 2 minutes, giving the return pump time to get the water level in your sump back down to a normal level, and preventing your protein skimmer from overflowing. So we're really looking forward to trying out some of the smart DC functions of the SCT version of the PSK 1200. I think it's going to be announced any day now by Sicce for just like $100 premium over the PSK 1200, and we're really looking forward to some of those software updates that will come in the future, especially being able to use the controller while it's connected. I'm not sure why they did this, or if this is just a bug, but while it's connected to the Control app, the buttons have become unresponsive on the hardware controller. It kind of negates the need for having buttons on it at all, right? So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions or comments about the controllable version of the PSK 1200, go ahead and pop those down below. Make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already. I'm really looking forward to a future of smart protein skimmers. There's a lot of controllable DC protein skimmers. There's like one wireless protein skimmer, one or two maybe, unless you plug them into a separate third-party controller. So it's really nice to have both the controllability functions and the programmability functions available with the PSK 1200 SDC. So thank you very much for joining us on this exploration of Sicce's brand new smart needle wheel protein skimmer pump, and we'll catch you guys on the next one.